Well, the preseason is finally over. Thank God, because there's nothing I hate in sports more than preseason football. Howie is trading left and right, which, by the way, every time Howie makes a deal, we don't need the picture of him smoking a cigar. Like when he trades for Sam Howell, I don't need a picture of him smoking a cigar. He didn't fleece anybody on that. He just got a third string quarterback. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, like most teams, you are going into the season with question marks, or are you? I was hanging out with a few buddies of mine, and we started talking about this upcoming season and this team. And my contention is that this team has no holes really. Like this team is loaded, and even the few holes they have, they're so good in other areas that it'll make up for that quasi hole. Whereas most teams are going into a season and there are legitimate roster battles going on in training camp, this wasn't really the case all that much. I mean, yeah, there was a few here and there, and there's a couple key pieces that they have to replace, but for the most part, the entire roster is back, and this team is absolutely loaded. Now, his big question is like, can Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell replicate what they did last season? Who replaces Darius Slay? I yelled at him that he was making something out of nothing. He was being a Philadelphia sports fan and going like, "There's no way. It's too good to be true. I'm just preparing myself to be let down. No, there's no way that they can replace Milton Williams." And I'm like, "Well, they can because Moro Jomo's pretty good." But then it got me thinking about like what is my biggest concern heading into this upcoming season. And then it dawned on me that there is one giant concern I have, and really one concern only, and that is the offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. And it's not even so much Kevin Patullo, it's the guy above him. It's Nick Sirianni. Now, I haven't really made this video yet because I'm sure I'll have like another slapdick website call me a hot take artist. But I will die on the hill that Nick Sirianni is nothing more than a cheerleader. He won a contest to be a head coach because never in my life, ever, and I'm going to tell you right now, never in your life, have you heard of a head coach being asked, what is it you do here? And he can't answer the question, which is what happened last year during training camp. He was point blank asked, so you don't control the offense, you don't control the defense. Like, what do you do? He really couldn't answer that question. Now, the reason why I'm so concerned with the offense, and by so concerned, I mean like if I had to pick something to be concerned about, it would be the offense. It's not like this is keeping me up at night. The offense should be loaded and they shouldn't have any problems. But we have now seen Nick Sirianni control an offense twice with similar situations of what we will see this upcoming year. Meaning, his first year, he's got Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen is brought in by Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni wants to run his offense. And it was a disaster. It was an unmitigated disaster. It was a shit show. And after, I think it was like a week 6 game against the Raiders out in Las Vegas, a game that I actually went to. After that, to his credit, Nick Sirianni said, look, I'm going to just hand the reins to you, Shane Steichen. And the offense started getting together, and they ended up making the playoffs that year. And it was because of the fact that Nick Sirianni stepped back, which on one hand I go, good. Like you had self-awareness to go like, I'm not doing a good job. On the other hand, you go, it's kind of a bad sign when a head coach who is an offensive-minded head coach, his offense sucks. So the next year, Shane Steichen once again leads this offense, and they end up going to the Super Bowl, and they should have won that Super Bowl if it was a fair turf, but that's neither here nor there. The next year, Shane Steichen leaves for the Colts job, and they elevate Brian Johnson. And Brian Johnson should have just taken Shane Steichen's offense. Like, he was in the building. This is a guy that knew what worked. But reportedly, he wasn't really able to. Because Nick Sirianni thought, no, you know what? I think I figured it out this time. I think I figured it out. I'm going to run the offense again. And it's up to what beat reporter you believe, but it's pretty clear that, like, Brian Johnson wasn't able to run what he actually wanted to run. He was overruled a lot of times by Nick Sirianni. And if you remember, that season, they started off great, and then the wheels fell off. And reportedly, one of the reasons why the wheels fell off was because Big Dom, of all people, was suspended from being on the sidelines, and he kept Nick Sirianni in check, which, once again, glaring red flag to me that your head coach needs to be kept in check by Big Dom, or else he's flying off at the handle. He's yelling at players. Like, I'm telling you, go read the Tim McManus article from about a year ago about all the dysfunction that happened in the Nick Sirianni era with the Eagles from the 2023 season. And I really do, like, it boggles my mind about how people are dying on the hill that Nick Sirianni is a good head coach. Because this team is so loaded that I go, like, I could coach, Big Dom could coach him, you know? So Brian Johnson gets let go because that season was, once again, it was a shit show. Like, they start off great, wheels fell off, they go in and they get boat raced by Tampa in the playoffs, and Shane Steichen goes, and Tweedledee and Tweedledum of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, they end up going. And what happens is Nick Sirianni has to go in, hat in hand, and basically beg for his job and convince Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie about why he should stay. And from the reports, it was basically like, hey, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do in order to keep my job. And Jeffrey Lurie, who wants stability, who won it, doesn't want to fire a guy. So he says, like, all right, like, I'll give you one more shot. They end up winning the Super Bowl. Why did they win the Super Bowl? Well, they brought in 2 veteran coordinators. They brought in Vic Fangio to run the defense, and they brought in Kellen Moore to run the offense. Wow, just had a stroke there. Hit thumbs down for that. So when you've got a situation where Nick Sirianni is either handing the reins off or handing the keys over to a veteran offensive coordinator, okay, like, it works out. My concern is that because Kevin Petula is not a veteran OC, because he doesn't have that cachet, because he was in the building last year, much like Brian Johnson, my concern is that Nick Sirianni will once again meddle. He will once again get a little too cocky. He once again will get a little too big for his britches, and he'll go, you know what? I think I figured it out again. You know what? Third time's a charm. And he hasn't. And he will somehow neuter this offense. That is the only concern I really have for this Eagles team. Because other than that, they should repeat. They are loaded. They are an absolute unit. Barring injuries, this team is stacked. And there's one weakness I really do think they have, and it is Nick Sirianni. Now, I realize that I am going to get crucified in the comment section because I am ripping a guy that just won a Super Bowl 6 months ago. And what boggles my mind is that this is a fan base that will die on the hill that Nick Sirianni is a good coach because he won a Super Bowl. Yet we watched Doug Peterson. And Doug Peterson is not reinventing the wheel. You know, Doug Peterson had faults. He wasn't the best head coach. He wasn't even close to it. We watched that man. We watched that man win a Super Bowl and then let the organization kind of crumble a little bit because apparently he couldn't coach his quarterback. Then he went to Jacksonville, and that was a disaster. So I'm flustered by how Eagles fans can go, like, you're an idiot. Nick Sirianni won a Super Bowl, LOL clown. Like, well, yeah, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid's one of the best coaches of all time. He never won a Super Bowl for the Eagles. Like, I don't know. Am I crazy here to think that a guy that cannot tell you what he actually does on a day in, day out basis, other than make creative PowerPoints and get the guys hyped up, he's a good head coach? To me, it's like, no, this roster is so loaded that it is basically fail-proof. I mean, last year, they had a vet DC and a vet OC. And Nick Sirianni basically just sat there and said, like, throw the dagger. Which, by the way, I mean, if there's one complaint I have, it's like the dagger was thrown two touchdowns ago. But, like, what did he do? So my big concern with the Eagles this upcoming year isn't necessarily a position battle. It's not a weakness. It's the fact that I'm worried the head coach will do what he's done in the past, and that is meddle. That is put his grubby little hands all over an offense, and then he ruins it, which is what he's done now twice. And I'm worried that he goes, whoa, Kevin, you got some good ideas, but I've been here before, and I know what I'm doing. And he doesn't. He just doesn't. And the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the fact that anytime he has had his hands on the offense, they've looked horrible. And anytime he has not had his hands on the offense, they've run very smoothly. Now, I hope I'm wrong, right? Like, I hope that Nick Sirianni doesn't even touch the offense. I hope that he basically just comes in and does a rah-rah speech every week. Because if that's the case, the Eagles will end up doing very well. But anytime Nick Sirianni decides to actually get involved, they kind of suck. It's kind of incredible when you think about it. Anytime this guy decides to coach, they suck. And I understand that people will fall over themselves to defend Nick Sirianni. I understand that coaches will defend Nick Sirianni because, like, yeah, he's their boss. Like, of course they're going to do that. But I'm sorry, I was out on the guy when he could not tell you what he does in a day in, day out basis, and I will die on that hill. And that's my only concern. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that my big concern isn't a position battle. My big concern isn't a position weakness. My big concern is a hypothetical of what happens if the coach decides to meddle. That's how loaded this team is. This team should dominate this season. This team should roll. And it's such a dominant roster that when they do lose, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be annoyed like I previously would have been. I think back to last year, week 3, they got destroyed by the Bucs, and I was pissed. And, I won't be that way anymore. They're going to drop a game here and there that they shouldn't. It's going to happen. It's football. But when the push comes to shove, this team, barring injuries, will be once again loaded. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of thumbs down for this one because I came at your king. Obviously, I'm a huge Eagles fan. I just don't believe the guy's a good head coach. I don't think he's a head coach. I think you could coach this team. And I mean, the proof is in the fact that, like, you coaching the team, you would just sit back and go like, hey, Kevin, run your shit. Hey, Vic, run your shit. I'll just sit here and I'll high five guys. And I think you could do that. I could do that. Big Dom could do that. So, all right, go Birds.